For the next year, in the lead up to America's 250th birthday, we'll be exploring the history of our country in a new series called These United States. Our year-long journey begins at the Statue of Liberty. Who plays her in the movie?
Meryl Streep.
This is Lonnie Bunch, secretary of the Smithsonian Institution. And we're looking at a model of that American icon, the Statue of Liberty, whose origin story may surprise you.
When this idea began, it was really about liberty. It wasn't about immigration.
That's right, says Bunch. Lady Liberty had nothing to do with immigration when she was first proposed in 1865.
The United States had ended slavery. And
Chains.
so that's why, if you look, she's standing on the chains and shackles.
But it would take more than 2 decades for the idea to be realized. While the statue itself would be paid for by the people of France, the Americans would be responsible for its prodigious base.
Almost anything you do involving culture or art, you got to raise money for.
And so this model came to our shores in 1883, 3 years before her full-sized sister, to drum up support. She stood in the Capitol Rotunda to no avail. Congress declined to foot the bill.
Many people in the United States thought, what is this? Is it a New York City thing? And why should we care about it if it's just New York City?
Some things never change.
That's true. That's true.
One supporter, 34-year-old poet Emma Lazarus, concerned about the plight of Russian Jews seeking asylum in America, penned a sonnet called The New Colossus for a fundraising auction. In it, she imagined Lady Liberty as a mother of exiles, welcoming the huddled masses through the golden door to America.
It's a great poem. It's important. But it really became, more than anything else, the best way to understand the possibilities of immigration in America.
But at the time, the poem got little notice. At the statue's dedication in 1886, not a single speaker mentioned immigration. But Lazarus's poem turned out to be a prophecy. In 1892, within sight of the statue, America's first ever immigration facility opened, Ellis Island.
There are stories of people pulling into this harbor, seeing that symbol, and just dropping to their knees and weeping.
By the 1920s, more than 12 million immigrants from Europe had come through Ellis Island, according to author and journalist Jia Lin Yang.
Very few people were turned away.
No documentation
No
needed.
documents. If you can get to the border, you're in.
But, says Yang, not all Americans were prepared to welcome them.
You have to remember the country is still relatively small at this time. So it's pretty shocking to the American people to have millions of people showing up from Italy, Eastern Europe, different religions. They're Catholic, they're Jewish, different foods, different languages.
Sitting here in 2025, it's by strained credulity to, imagine that people back then thought that Italians couldn't assimilate.
That's right. But there were people were writing columns and long essays saying, these people don't belong here.
And so in 1924, President Calvin Coolidge signed the Johnson-Reed Act, which created a system of ethnic quotas that essentially banned immigration from countries outside of Western and Northern Europe. It was the first major immigration restriction since 1882's Chinese Exclusion Act, which barred the entry of Chinese laborers. But the 1924 law didn't apply to countries on this side of the Atlantic.
The thinking was, these are our neighbors. We need to make it feel like they're welcome to come and go.
So even during this period, there was no such thing as an illegal immigrant from Mexico, say?
No.
But for more than 40 years, through a global depression, a world war, and the Holocaust, the door was virtually shut to everyone else.
So by the time we get to the 1950s, are there just no immigrants?
The numbers are getting smaller and smaller. Talk to somebody in 1955, they're like, yeah, immigrants, that's old news. And that would have been the case forever and ever, except that for 40 years, a group of lawmakers and activists felt that the law was discriminatory, and they wanted to change it.
Among them, Brooklyn Congressman Manny Seller. He voted against the 1924 quotas as a first-year rep, and for decades fought to make America more welcoming to immigrants. Then, in 1958, a Massachusetts senator with his sights on the White House published a pamphlet calling for a change to the nation's laws. John F. Kennedy's A Nation of Immigrants would introduce the now ubiquitous phrase.
The book is trying to establish almost a new American history that says, these people who came, decades ago, you may have forgotten them. This is what makes America American. It's the fact that we are a nation of immigrants.
Which is new to a lot of American ears.
Yes.
After Kennedy's assassination, at the height of the Civil Rights Movement, the reformers, including Manny Seller, who was still serving in Congress, seized the moment.
We're now going to get this bill through, for which I've been fighting for 40 years in the Congress.
And on October 3rd, 1965, at where else? The Statue of Liberty, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Immigration and Nationality Act, which ended the ethnic quota system.
Those who do come will come because of what they are and not because of the land from which they sprung.
But even the law's most ardent backers didn't anticipate just how many people would end up coming from all over the world. Since 1965, when that law went into effect, the share of foreign-born people living in America has slowly crept up to about 14% of the U.S. population, roughly the same as it was back in 1924 when the ethnic quotas were imposed.
This law really transformed the whole country. And if you meet somebody and their family's from Africa, the Middle East, Asia.
You're here because of what was signed on that island.
Yeah.
In a twist, the 1965 law limited immigration from Mexico and the rest of the Americas, setting the stage for the illegal immigration crisis at the southern border. But it also allowed Jia Lin Yang's own parents to come to the U.S. after escaping the Civil War in China, a fact she hadn't realized until writing a book about this chapter of the immigration story.
When I looked into this history, I really understood how contingent my family's presence is here. I took it completely for granted, right? Grew up steeped in Statue of Liberty, Emma Lazarus poem, Nation of Immigrants. Of course we were allowed to come here. It's a nation of immigrants.
Did your parents feel lucky?
I think they felt deeply lucky. I have 2 children now. Our family's entire story changed because we were allowed to come here. And now everything after me in the family tree is an American story.
Her posture, her demeanor, she's not a warrior.
But she is powerful.
And that power, says Lonnie Bunch, remains undiminished.
Is it fair to say that the immigrants themselves are the ones who gave it this meaning?
They imbued it with this notion that this is a symbol of the possibility of America. That's why I call it a statue of promise.
Who do you think about when you think about New York? I think about her. I think about her.
If you've always wanted to get close to a head of state, then welcome to this swampy field just outside historic Williamsburg, Virginia.
I have my rain boots, so I'm ready for the mud and all the mulch and everything.
It's just huge.
The gigantic and decaying busts, some 20 feet tall, weighing several tons each, portray every president from George Washington to George W. Bush.
The photos doesn't do it justice.
But they're an accidental tourist attraction.
This whole thing is a vibe.
You kind of would expect them to be like in a museum, instead they're outside, just in the elements.
All on the site of Howard Hankins's recycling center.
I restored Jackson all the way, so he got painted up and he looked really good for a while.
Hankins, who was also a builder, had originally helped construct a park for the busts that opened in 2004 to capitalize on the Williamsburg tourism industry. But just 6 years later,
the economy hit them hard. They just couldn't keep the doors open, and they Called me up and asked me if I'd crush them. So I crushed concrete.
Why didn't you want to say, okay, let's just get rid of these things? Nobody wants
They're
it.
our history. I don't care who it is. You save it and you learn from it.
So he decided to use his company resources and move the presidents, which resulted in damage to all of them, some of it major.
Lincoln over there, he got dropped and broke the back of his head open a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he'll be all right. I can fix it.
Hankins just plopped the heads on his property, but quietly word got out. Visitors started sneaking in and posting photos on social media, attracting still more attention from history buffs like John Plasholl.
I am a medical device sales professional by primary profession.
He's also a photographer, drawn to these eerie images. So he asked Howard Hankins to let him come in and take pictures here one night.
Which he obliged, I guess maybe because I was very polite to him, and then I was hooked.
So hooked that he convinced Hankins to open the property about once a month, selling tickets online and allowing small groups of visitors and guided tours.
Welcome to the President's Edge. Thank you for spending time to come out here on this breezy day.
It started out locally, then it expanded to a national thing, and now it's international.
And the decaying heads have now gained an even bigger following.
Deep in the middle of Virginia sits one of the creepiest things on Google Maps.
This TikTok post has almost 8 million views. It all sort of delights the man who created the statues.
It amazes me. I'm sorry that they were all busted up. If I had known that they were going to be moved, I could have told the guy how to move them.
95-year-old David Addix, a successful painter and sculptor with prominent works in his native Texas, is the one who created the heads, inspired by a trip to Mount Rushmore in the early 1990s.
I was overwhelmed, but disappointed that I couldn't get closer and look in their eyes.
You felt like they were just too far away.
Yeah. Driving back in the middle of the night, the idea came into my small little brain, wouldn't it be great to do the presidents, not just 4, but all of them?
He has his own private collection outside his Houston studio, just below a busy interstate.
Well, it's quite an array, I have to say. It kind of stops you in your tracks, for sure.
Thank you. It is an array.
His most recent sculpture is of Barack Obama. As this documentary shows, Addix first carves a small clay model, then makes a larger styrofoam base, eventually creating molds that are filled with concrete to cast the statues. The shoulders are built separately on wire frames. He says making one of the busts takes about a month.
Why do you think it's important for Americans to see statues like these, to have statues like these?
History. Why would anybody have a statue of anything? History.
Addix originally hoped there would be at least 3 different centers featuring these busts, but a park in South Dakota near Mount Rushmore went out of business. So now the only place visitors can see them is at that Virginia recycling plant, which drew Jordan Patterson and Eric Nelson, who see meaning in the decay.
Some of them are crumbling and some of them are new and some of them are more damaged than others. It's almost like they're still looking over their people in a way, if you could think of it. Yeah, not necessarily putting them on a pedestal, but just the magnitude of what they represented.
And Howard Hankins, who saved these statues, says he will try to preserve them, but not to repair them.
Some people really like the decay, the way they look, the weathering and all that. Do you?
Yeah, it does give them more character. I probably will keep them that way.
A lot of people have really praised you for the fact that you just wouldn't destroy these things.
I've gotten some touching letters from kids that really affect you a little bit, thanking me, and I've had them send me a gift card for $10, and it was like, are you kidding me?
Seriously?
Yeah, thank you, and it's for them mainly. Let them come out and enjoy them.
On this holiday weekend, Faith Saley introduces us to a new Washington memorial, more than 100 years in the making.
Over the past 40 years, memorials to America's 20th century wars have sprung up across Washington, D.C., with one conspicuous omission.
Why do you think it took so long to get a national memorial to World War I in our nation's capital?
If you ask anybody on the streets where the World War I memorial is in D.C., most of them will point you to the D.C. Veterans Memorial. For a long time, people assumed that it was the national memorial, but the little rotunda that's there is only to district residents.
In 2015, Joe Weishar was a 25-year-old intern at a Chicago architecture firm when he heard about an open design competition for DC's first National World War I memorial.
I set up a shelf in my closet. I set up my computer on the shelf, and that was my office.
You weren't even a licensed architect, so
I was doing this like in nights and weekends after work, and then I sent it off and forgot about it until I got a very strange phone call, and they're like, "You're one of 5 finalists. We need you in Washington like tomorrow."
Had you ever been to Washington, D.C.?
No, I'd never been. Didn't own a suit. Had never been to Washington.
I'm pleased to announce that the World War I Centennial Commission has selected the submission by Joseph Weishar.
Weishar's design beat out more than 360 applicants from over 20 countries. When the memorial opened to the public in 2021, only one thing was missing: an intricate 60-foot-long bronze relief, the memorial's centerpiece.
I threw out the last 100 years of history in the art world, and I went back to what preceded that period of time.
Meet Sabin Howard, firebrand, classical sculptor, and self-appointed bulwark against the scourge of modern art.
Artists like de Kooning or Jackson Pollock, I'm in opposition to them. It's a scam what's happened in the last 100 years. I'm here to rectify that scam.
Shepherding Howard through the Byzantine approvals process was his client, the congressionally created World War I Centennial Commission.
You go to these meetings and none of the people in the room are artists. They're all lawyers and, Washington bureaucrats. The commission asked me, we need to see more a dying soldier perhaps and more suffering. And then I started posing the models. You had madness, you had amputations, death. So I went pretty deep, and when I brought that iteration into the commission office, chairs went flying literally across the room.
Literally someone threw a chair.
Yes. I was treated as, you're working for us. And I took that for a long time, but then we got to a moment in the relationship. I stood up and I said, I will not compromise this design. If you don't like it, you sculpt it and I'll send you some webinars.
The World War I Centennial Commission said they are proud of the magnificent memorial that Joe Weishar and Sabin Howard have created, and that it provides a model of how a complex and collaborative process can work.
It is a movie in bronze,
Sabin Howard may lack tact, but he doesn't lack confidence.
If you look at this figure, I don't think in the history of art that there's ever been a figure with this much explosive energy.
The sculpture charts a soldier's wartime journey, from his ambivalent departure to his wordless homecoming, to the animal savagery of combat in between.
Were these young men prepared for what they were going to find?
They were not prepared for what they were going to find. Just the quagmire, the terror of artillery shells, rats and lice and trench feet. No, they are completely unprepared.
For World War I historian Jennifer Keene, the sculpture's final tableau illustrates the heavy toll the war exacted on its veterans.
I think that idea at the end that it's just a gesture, right? Here's the helmet. There's no words there because maybe there aren't words that can really describe what that soldier has been through.
It's not like graceful or like happy, it's solemn. She's like 2 feet shorter than the soldiers, but she holds up as a bookend the whole wall. A little kid. So there you have it. 60 feet, 25 tons, and 38 figures.
9 years of your life.
Yeah, but that's not a lot when you think about it.
The sculpture will be unveiled at a ceremony later this month.
100 years from now, what do you want a visitor to your memorial to experience?
I want the visitor 100 years from now have the same feeling that I had when I went to go see the David when I was 25. We are made in God's image. That sculpture is made in God's image. So is mine. It's a simple thing, but very deep.
In a town full of monuments, there's one that stands above them all.
The tallest, the simplest, the most straightforward, the most direct. It's very much like Washington himself in that way, actually.
Paul Goldberger is professor of design and architecture at the New School in New York and says the monument's iconic design was not, in fact, by design.
Because Robert Mills, who designed the Washington Monument, originally envisioned a classical colonnade going around the bottom. Basically kind of like a round classical temple. They had all kinds of financial problems as well as political problems, and so only the obelisk was built.
Construction began in 1848 and was painfully slow due to the challenge of 19th century crowdfunding, according to Mike Litterst, spokesperson for the National Mall.
No one person could give more than $1 to the Washington Monument because they wanted it to be a monument of the people. But when everybody can only give $1 and you need $250,000 plus to finish the project, that's going to be a problem over time.
Financial troubles aside, the monument had no shortage of groups who wanted to be associated with it.
Stones came from all corners of America.
And its stairwell's engraved stones give us a window into 19th century America.
And here we have the Fire Department of Philadelphia proudly showing off what was, in 1854, a state-of-the-art fire engine.
Masons, locomotive makers, temperance societies, a time capsule of states that were tenuously united.
This theme that the stones here give us a glimpse into mid-19th century America is illustrated no better than on the Tennessee stone. The Federal Union, it must be preserved. We're talking mid-1850s here. This is a direct reference to the storm clouds that are gathering that will eventually erupt in civil war in 1861.
Even foreign countries left their mark, and there was a legendary stone from the Vatican.
Pius IX sent a stone from the ruins of the Temple of Concord in the Forum in Rome. And this outraged a number of people in the country, specifically a political party called the Know-Nothings. Their platform was decidedly anti-Catholic and anti-foreigners.
The Know-Nothings threw the so-called Pope Stone into the Potomac, then staged a coup, taking over the society charged with building the monument in 1855. Construction ground to a halt. For more than 20 years, the obelisk was a stump. Cows were kept on the site during the Civil War, almost as if to symbolize the United States' unrealized ideals.
The centennial of American independence comes in 1876. That's the renewed interest, not to just finish it. We're either going to finish it or we're going to tear it down because this is a complete embarrassment.
And it's one of the reasons that if you look closely at the monument today, you can see a difference in its marble cladding. When it was finally finished in 1885, it stood at 555 feet and 5 1/8 inches tall and was the world's tallest structure.
The Washington Monument is just a pure shape, and it suggests that Washington is an idea as much as a man, an idea of singularity, an idea of clarity, perfection, and heading for the sky.
The man depicted here was arguably a cut above the other stone carvers he worked with. But acknowledging that required a rewriting of the history of one of our nation's most beloved monuments. Jim Axelrod takes us to the Black Hills of South Dakota.
Mount Rushmore's designer, Gutzon Borglum, once said he hoped the faces would remain unchanged until the wind and rain alone shall wear them away. The monument, carved into granite, was designed to be as enduring as it was inspiring.
And the team that created this memorial exemplifies the perseverance of the American spirit.
Which is why this ceremony, held yesterday, was so remarkable, as the National Park Service marked a change at Mount Rushmore.
3, 2, 1.
A small but significant revision to the story of its creation. 48 years after his death, an Italian immigrant named Luigi Del Bianco was officially recognized as Mount Rushmore's chief carver. So there he is, performing a little surgery.
Yeah, it is plastic surgery.
On Thomas Jefferson.
It's really granite surgery.
As Luigi Del Bianco's grandson Lou explained to us, the chief carver was the master craftsman in charge of refining the expression in the faces. So the twinkle in Lincoln's eye.
Yep.
Or Jefferson's lips.
Yep.
That's Luigi Del Bianco's work?
Yes.
Since Rushmore's completion in 1941, the 400 laborers had always been saluted as a group. But for the last 30-plus years, the Del Bianco family had been making the case Luigi wasn't just part of the crowd. If we're looking at Rushmore, what of Luigi Del Bianco's work am I seeing that separates him out and makes him deserving of his own plaque?
Well, when people tell me their impression of the faces, they say that there's a humanity. There's a humanity in that granite. And I'm convinced that my grandfather helped bring that humanity out.
Trained in Italy as a stone carver, Luigi Del Bianco came to America in 1908 at the age of 16, settling eventually in Port Chester, New York, where he opened a business. So in Port Chester, New York, there are headstones carved by the same man who did Rushmore?
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times an older person in town would say, "Can you believe it? The man who carved the president's faces carved my mother's headstone." Unbelievable.
Lou Del Bianco grew up knowing all about his grandfather's special role at Rushmore. What do we have in here?
Well, those are about 75 documents from the Library of Congress,
including testimony from Gutzon Borglum.
He is worth any 3 men I can find in America for this particular type of work here and now.
This is Borglum's writing.
Oh, yeah.
But nothing Lou showed the Park Service would change the narrative, at least not until Cam Shawley took over the regional office in charge of Rushmore.
You know, there's a pay sheet that has his name, Chief Carver, $1.50 an hour.
The more Shawley read of what Lou sent him, the more he realized the story of Rushmore needed rewriting.
I found myself wondering if we should change course here.
So Shawley dispatched a couple of National Park Service historians to Lou's basement in Port Chester.
They went through the booklet that I showed you. By the 4th page, one of the historians said, "Well, you sold me, let's go have lunch."
And after years of making Luigi's case, the official policy was overturned.
We have Luigi Del Bianco in that visitor center. I mean, with pictures of him, his name's in there. We just haven't called him Chief Carver, and now we will.
Well, now we all know Gutzon Borglum, of course, but he didn't do it alone. There were about 400 people who helped him.
The decision made at headquarters may take a little while to filter down to the tours. We got this recognition coming to Luigi Del Bianco. It's kind of a neat part of the story, isn't it?
I don't know that part of the story, so I can't say.
Are you going to have to brush up on Luigi?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
But Lou Del Bianco isn't concerned, knowing he's got history on his family's side, and now a plaque to prove it.
We came with a boat, and we were standing on a deck, and everybody said, "Look, there is a Statue of Liberty." And my heart started to pound, so hard. And the tears just come down, and I was looking. And I was thinking, oh, that's so beautiful, it's so big, and it gave me such a strong feeling about, good life and a good hope.
The most thrilling and most exciting thing in my life that came on, we saw after 12 days, we saw the Statue of Liberty. There was not a dry tear in the whole boat. Everybody cried, and each one offered their own prayer in their own language, in their own way.
Oh God, I screamed. And I called my mother and I said, Mother, look at the Statue of Liberty. And look at how beautiful it is.
We approach the world through symbols, wrote Baudelaire, from whose country came the Statue of Liberty, and the symbols observe us with familiar glances. Anastasia Argianas came to America from Greece in 1914.
When I went to Greek school, we had a big picture of the Statue of Liberty on the wall. And that Statue of Liberty, they opened the arms for people. They came from all parts of the world, poor, hungry. They were all welcome to this country. They made America.
Liberty enlightening the world was a 19th century gift of the people of France, paid for by small donations. American school children sent in pennies to pay for building the pedestal.
Can you ever picture her not being there? Well, neither can we. We're Kodak, a founding sponsor of the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island Centennial Restoration.
When it came time to rebuild the statue, corporate America took over the job. The corporations bought the right to use the statue to help advertise themselves.
Your Dodge dealers are proud of their role as founding sponsors of the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation.
But once again, hundreds of thousands of ordinary Americans also contributed.
When President Reagan asked me to join this effort, we agreed that not a cent of public money would be used. And I'm happy to say none has.
Lee Iacocca is chairman of the Statue of Liberty Ellis Island Foundation. He says the commercialism is not a vice, it's a virtue.
And I see this great, not just outpouring of patriotism, but strong feeling that you don't get anything for nothing. And with freedom comes a responsibility.
To the symbols on bars 153 and 158 double F, please.
Richard Adler, the Broadway composer, felt he owed the statue something. He composed The Lady Remembers, the Statue of Liberty suite.
The Statue of Liberty was something that I couldn't resist writing about. I wanted to write about it. The Statue of Liberty is not only a great work of art, a great piece of sculpture, but it's also the symbol of the free world to everybody, not just Americans. However, to Americans it has a very special meaning because all of the people in this country are former immigrants, either themselves or in past generations of their family. It has to be that way. Therefore, the immigrant experience is the history of our country.
Some of my folks arrived in New York Harbor. The chances are some of your folks did too. They were people who left everything they knew because they'd heard of something they thought might be better.
Well, see, America was known all the time as the golden land, you know, the golden opportunities.
Sam Auspitz said he never had the delusion that the streets were paved with gold. He knew he'd have to work. That he has for more than 60 years, as proprietor of the famous 4th Street Deli in Philadelphia.
Okay, what else?
Sam Auspitz and his mother and sisters and brothers came to America from Hungary in 1920.
And then we really were in trouble. And not only was the fear of hunger, was also the fear of the enemy, you know. So we left town to find a safer place.
The father had come first. The father very often came first. The first time Sam Auspitz saw his father was from the deck of a docking steamship.
And of course, naturally told me it's my father, and when we saw my father, we had a certain wonderful feeling. That's the first time in my life. At 12 years old, I had a father. Of course, I didn't talk to him, but I realized I had a father.
Even after they were in New York Harbor, even after they had spotted relatives from the deck, newcomers weren't in America yet. They still had to go through the daunting immigration station on the island just offshore.
They got us off the boat. We put into a ferry, and they took us to Ellis Island. There were so many people coming to this country from all over the world. In Ellis Island, there was a jam. People were wall to wall from every direction that you went into. There were people there. So
Joseph Talise followed his father to America from Italy in 1919.
Then I had to go to the hospital inspection, and of course they chest to chest, and all there were doctors. And I knew a lot of people were being thrown aside, and I heard these people were going to go back. And I'll tell you, I was sweating.
Joseph Talise was 16 at the time. He was alone, and they told him, "Come in, be an American."
By luck, I passed.
He found a job in a tailor's shop in Ocean City, New Jersey. Eventually, he bought the shop.
Yeah, I joined the Rotary. I don't know what you know, Rotary Club, and it's a good social club, but non-sectarian, no, it's not anybody. But they made me president. I never had one lesson in English language. But I said, here's our people, that they make me president of the Rotary. And all these doctors, all these lawyers that belong here, hell, it doesn't make any difference. Here I'm a little poor little tailor, and I can't hardly speak the language. And I said, this is really America that my father was talking about, and this couldn't happen anywhere else but here.
The last immigrants came through Ellis Island in 1954. Visas were granted overseas now, and the great halls had lost their usefulness. The Statue of Liberty was showing her age, too. By now, she was much more than a statue. She was a great idea, and you cannot let a great idea rust and fall down. The torch, the great torch itself, was removed and repaired and gently set back into Liberty's hand. The scaffolding will be down in time for a great tribute to the statue on the 4th of July.
It's not just an ordinary job. This is the job. This is the job you want to be on.
Elmo Leonardelli grew up in Brooklyn in sight of the Statue of Liberty. Working on it now, he says, he's really seeing it for the first time.
It was just a symbol out there, and that's it, really, you know, because you're a kid. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just something to go visit, and that's about it when you're young, you know. But as you grow older, you know, it represents the freedom of this country. I mean, that's why she has these chains broken at the bottom of her feet. You know, they mean that she broke her bondage, right, to freedom. And that's what this statue's telling us, that we're free.
Peter B. Kaplan's gift to the statue is 60,000 photographs he's made over the last 3 years.
It was a real privilege to get out into the torch, and then as they put up the scaffold and I got closer and closer to her, I think the obsession just became greater and greater because I realized the beauty of the statue. To see the details of the hair, the details of the face, the eyes, the back of her neck, the fingernails. I mean, look at the details on the tablet there. There's something magical about it. I don't know what it is yet.
I think that the most beautiful feelings what I ever will experience to see Statue of Liberty, because all our dreams came true. We saw it, and we were very happy.
Ines Borko and her husband Kalman had to wait 17 years to get permission to come to America from Yugoslavia. They arrived March 23rd, 1964.
Till this day, we are very happy here. And we celebrate the day that we arrived. And we said at that time, till we live, we will celebrate the day that we came here. And I'm still very happy.
We approach the world through symbols, and the symbols observe us with familiar glances. Listening to new Americans talk about the Statue of Liberty makes you understand. It's really not the statue they love so much. It's the liberty.
Freedom. We have lots of freedom. We have everything. You can say what you want. You can go where you want.
Anybody has a chance, provided you're willing and you're trying. See, in other words, I didn't have it easy. When I started over here, I had a struggle.
Because it's going to stand there for another 100 years. Because that's the freedom that we have, the freedom of liberty, the freedom of speech, the freedom of living, the freedom of the world. And if anybody don't appreciate America, they're nobodies. They're nobodies.
In a city rich with museums, Faith Saley has discovered one of Washington's hidden gems, the one-time office of Civil War nurse Clara Barton, the woman they called the angel of the battlefield.
If you don't know to look for it, you might pass it by. This ordinary address between the fast casual Korean and red sauce Italian restaurants in downtown Washington, D.C. But a sign out front hints at the remarkable story this building has to tell.
When people hear that there's something called the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers Museum, what's their reaction?
Usually, what? It's almost like you're stepping back in time as you step up.
David Price oversees a museum that honors the lesser-known contributions of one of this country's greatest humanitarians.
And one woman, Clara Barton, would carve for herself a unique place in the annals of service to mankind.
Before gaining fame as founder of the American Red Cross, Barton made her name as a Civil War nurse who brought badly needed aid to a Union front line low on provisions and morale.
They are without supplies. They're using corn husks to wrap wounds. And here is Clara Barton showing up with 3 wagon loads of supplies. You name it, she had it.
She had some close calls on the battlefield.
She's giving a man a drink of water, and a shot is fired and goes through the sleeve of her dress and it instantly kills him.
There was no more to be done for him, and I left him to his rest. I have never mended that hole in my sleeve.
In 1865, with the war nearing its end, Barton saw another unfulfilled need and characteristically stepped up to help.
The government woefully unprepared for the repercussions of war. No dog tags, no official procedure for informing the survivors that your loved one has died, and she cares about those left behind.
Barton successfully petitioned President Lincoln for permission to start a missing soldiers office, and her mail slot was soon flooded with inquiries from wives and mothers desperate to learn the fates of their enlisted loved ones. She and a small staff meticulously compiled the names of the missing onto large rolls, which were then reprinted in local newspapers.
This is a clipping from the New York Tribune.
All those names. Just hundreds and hundreds of names.
Mm-hmm. This is a way of not only acknowledging that someone was looking for them, but also in an endeavor to try to find any information.
You're still getting things. From
Oh,
the Civil War.
absolutely.
Michelle Crowell works in the Library of Congress's Manuscript Division, which houses Barton's papers, including some of the anguished letters she received.
This was the mother of a soldier. The first that we knew of him was to find his name among the dead at Salisbury. I still cherish a hope that this news may not prove true. Will you aid me in ascertaining the truth of this report, the natural longings of a mother's heart to know something of her dear boy who died in the hands of such an enemy prompts me to write to a stranger.
God, it's heartbreaking. And to think she received thousands of letters like that.
Often, Barton found that the soldiers she was searching for had died. But for their next of kin, that knowledge provided much-needed closure.
Add that to the fact that the only way the survivors could get a pension is if there is an official disposition of them being killed.
3 years after opening the office, Barton submitted a final report to Congress. By her count, she had received over 63,000 pieces of correspondence and determined the fate of some 22,000 missing men. Finally, dependents could claim benefits and families could grieve. The building itself might have been lost too. After Barton's death at 90 in 1912, it became a shoe store. In the 1990s, it was purchased by the government and slated for demolition when a carpenter named Richard Lyons conducted a routine inspection of the dilapidated third floor. He noticed a hole in the ceiling and pulled himself up, as he recounted in an interview before his death in 2023.
I was on my hands and knees. I took my flashlight shine around. I put my hand on a piece of metal. And I went to move it out of my way. And when I moved it, I turned it over, and it was Mrs. Soldier's office.
Lyons had stumbled upon a time capsule of Barton's work. The building was spared and, after a lengthy renovation, opened to the public as a museum in 2015, 10 years ago this month.
What do you think Clara Barton's legacy is?
It all adds up to take action and care for your fellow man. Her efforts, physically and mentally, wore her out. She gave it her all. So let's all give a little bit.
For many Americans, our national park system is a point of immense pride, a reflection of our shared heritage, and an appreciation of our natural wonders. But with America's 250th birthday fast approaching, it's also at the center of a fierce debate. Here's Jim Axelrod.
The peace and tranquility of Muir Woods, just north of San Francisco, home to 500-plus acres of old-growth redwoods, make it just about the last place you'd expect to find a fight brewing.
The fact that they're taking down whole groups of signs about climate change and our nation's history is disappointing and embarrassing.
While it takes a lot to anger retired U.S. Park Ranger Lucy Scott, an executive order from President Trump entitled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History did the trick, calling for signs promoting divisive narratives and corrosive ideology at national parks to be removed.
We're going to continue to fight climate change and protect the redwood forests the best that we can.
That included a sign Scott made to inform visitors climate change threatened the redwoods by reducing the fog they rely on for water. A scientific fact.
These are sticky tape marks from where the climate change sign was. The sign lived here happily for almost 8 or 9 years, and then the sign was taken down a couple of weeks ago.
Just ripped off.
Ripped off.
Another sign at Muir Woods was changed to conform with an Interior Department directive to remove exhibits that inappropriately disparage Americans past their living. The sign simply added more names to the timeline of the park's development beyond just those who donated the land.
The administration told us to remove the added stories. They erased that women helped, they erased that there was Native Americans here for the longest time. They erased anything but.
If Lucy Scott is dismayed.
George Washington was here. He did good work here. He also thought about how he could protect his property here, and that property included 9 enslaved Africans.
Alan Spears says he's flat out disgusted by the removal of signs from the Independence National Historical Park in Philadelphia. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a minute.
They're gone. They were taken down.
Spears, a historian with the National Parks Conservation Association, took us to where Washington lived in the 1790s, and where panels from a 15-year-old exhibit about 9 enslaved people the father of our country brought with him to Philadelphia were taken down in January.
So this is a representation of the complex, nuanced nature of our history, and that's too much for some people to bear. They want a straightforward narrative that's uncomplicated.
So rather than have signs up that threaten the straightforward, uncomplicated narrative,
We'd rather have a brick wall.
While a lawsuit to restore those signs in Philadelphia works through the federal courts, at the Jamaica Bay Wildlife Center in New York City, a sign mentioning things we hope never to repeat, like slavery, massacres of Native Americans, or holding Japanese Americans in wartime camps, is among dozens of others taken down nationwide in response to the executive order. Sunday Morning has learned an internal government database now lists hundreds of signs, books, and pamphlets flagged for review.
Some of that history might make people who are visiting these sites think critically, and I think that's the concern from people on the side who want to restore truth and sanity. I think they just want a really sterilized experience for people when they come to places like national parks to learn.
Sterilized, whitewashed.
Sterilized, whitewashed, controlled, censored, all those words apply.
The Interior Department told us in a statement, the liberal media, including CBS, remains more focused on theatrics than sharing the diligent work of the Department of Interior to ensure truth and sanity are restored at our nation's monuments. We reached out to more than 30 Republican senators and House members. None would go on camera to discuss the issue of problematic signage.
You can't only focus on the warts, and then you can't cherry pick.
Brenda Hafera with the Heritage Foundation supports the review of the park's signs. At Washington's home, where an entire exhibit focuses on his enslaved household staff, Hafera says that doesn't leave enough room for the first president's achievements. So for you, it's a matter of balance.
Proportionality, yes.
And that a wildlife center is not the place to discuss racism.
I think it's very important that not everything is political. That if we're going to a wildlife center, we're learning about wildlife. And that it's important for our country to have those opportunities to not be provoked to make everything political.
It's taking us back to a past that really didn't exist.
Chuck Sams was the director of the National Park System under President Biden and a defender of the sign-writing process that can take up to 18 months.
You want to make sure you're telling the most truthful story you possibly can with the best scholarship that's available.
This isn't a bunch of liberal park rangers shooting from the hip with what they feel.
It's not about feeling. It's literally about what is the scholarship behind this, and can you back that scholarship up?
The facts are important. All the facts, says this man who once oversaw our national parks and their mission to educate, illuminate, and inspire.
We have to self-examine in order to make sure that this experiment of our democracy, of our union, can only grow stronger. America's always strived to be better. And we can do that by learning from things that we do well and also those things that we didn't do well.
At any of our 433 national park sites, visitors can now scan a QR code to report signs or brochures they consider problematic. But as we head to our nation's 250th birthday, people like historian Alan Spears wonder why anyone interested in a more perfect union would want to.
If you are thinking about visiting national parks, but you don't want to tackle any of these large issues that make you think critically about race and slavery and gender and other things like that, you know, there are hundreds of thousands of places in the United States where you can go. Knock yourself out at Six Flags. But don't ruin it for the rest of us who have come to rely on national parks as places where we can go for that learning. We want to maintain their ability unimpaired to be able to talk about the full scope of our history, wonder, warts, and all.
If the Statue of Liberty has been lonely, standing at the mouth of New York Harbor as she has these past 134 years, she certainly never showed it. Still closed to visitors due to COVID, Lady Liberty projects the same confidence and majesty as ever. Only now she's got company. On Wednesday, a second, smaller Statue of Liberty arrived on our shores, a gift from France. They say it symbolizes the enduring friendship between our two countries. French Ambassador Philippe Etienne.
It's more important than ever to underline how our democracies need to work together with our common values, including everything which is symbolized by these statues. Freedom, but also equal opportunities for all our citizens.
Hoisted from her Parisian perch last month and carefully wrapped, the statue boarded a freighter bound for America, retracing the very same transatlantic route the original statue traveled in 1885. As the new statue passed Liberty Island, New York City's fire department greeted it with a water cannon salute. Crafted from the original plaster model used by French sculptor Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, this bronze replica weighs in at nearly 1,000 pounds. At 9 feet high, it's about 1/16 the size of its much larger counterpart. This Independence Day weekend, the statue is on display on Ellis Island, less than a mile from her big sister. Then it's off to Washington, D.C., where the statue will be installed at the French ambassador's residence, just in time for Bastille Day on July 14th. We'll be back in a moment. Washington, D.C. is a city of memorials, honoring presidents, our fallen warriors, and those who shaped history for the better. But there are two memorials in Washington that hold particular relevance for this morning's broadcast. The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial honors peace officers killed in the line of duty. It's a place of quiet contemplation, nestled among the city's federal courts. Inscribed on its marble walls are names of the fallen, along with this quotation: "It is not how these officers died that made them heroes. It is how they lived." Not far away is an altogether different memorial, one that took shape last summer during the protests following the police killing of George Floyd. Black Lives Matter Plaza is a 2-block stretch of 16th Street, which leads to the front yard of the White House. Its 50-foot letters sent an unmistakable message to the world, commemorating what is considered to be the largest civil rights protest movement in American history. 2 memorials, 1 city, 2 facets of 1 issue.
A 27.5-acre island off the tip of southern Manhattan will reopen to the public tomorrow, a public of tourists. The island, Ellis Island, stopped admitting the public 22 years ago. Then it was a public of immigrants. Charles Kuralt, on the road to 76, reports tonight on the state which has become synonymous with the diversity of the American people, New York.
Who do you think about when you think about New York? I think about her. I think about her, and Igor Sikorsky, and Igor Stravinsky, and Mother Cabrini, and Father Flanagan, and all the other eyes and minds who have looked up to return her gaze. I think about her face, and about theirs. Their faces are familiar, of course, under the fur hat, under the babushka. Those are our faces. We came from the world, and our port of debarkation was New York. 7 blonde boys admitted to go to Cologne, North Dakota. 7 farmers for the plains. 7 soldiers lost to the Kaiser. In the earliest days, there was no United States Immigration Service. We came to New York, and it was New York that took us in. John James Audubon, John Peter Zenger, John Jacob Astor, all came. Anybody came who could afford the fare. New York said welcome. New York even prepared a place of welcome, the first in the world. Castle Garden, here at the tip of Manhattan, was first a fort, then a music hall. Then from 1855 to 1890, it had a high vaulted roof on it back then, a receiving station for immigrants. This was the way into America. One day in about 1860, a boy named Karl came walking down this passageway and out into the light and looked up and saw New York. That was my great-grandfather. His name was Karl Kuralt. Whatever your name is, chances are fair that your great-grandfather made the walk down that passageway too. Nearly 8 million people, the great-grandparents of quite a lot of us, stepped into America right here. 16 million more came to Ellis Island. Immigration began to get restrictive about then. You could get turned back for having the wrong political opinion, or having the wrong color, or being too old or too ill. There was heartbreak and injustice in these halls, but most made it in. Hannah Arendt, Charlie Chaplin, Newt Rockney, Felix Frankfurter. They carried our greatness in their baggage. We are all immigrants. Even American Indians came here from someplace else. New York is a celebration of our diversity. A long way from Georgia, and even longer way from China, a Georgia boy has got his name written in Chinese on a banner that hangs over Mott Street. This is the authentic picture of New York City. And this is the authentic sound in Orchard Street on the Lower East Side. On you, the hat looks wonderful. Wait a minute, man, don't rush me. This is no tight little island, this New York. This is the original site of the raucous American miracle, the place most of us started out from, and to which, merely by walking in its streets and looking into its faces, we can come home to. Here, Emma Lazarus wrote in 1883, "Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles." Charles Kuralt, CBS News, on the road to 76 in New York.